Welcome to Mastering Agility. If you want to listen to authentic conversations with the most inspiring guests, find like-minded people in the Mastering Agility Discord community, or both online and face-to-face events, this is the platform for you. Grab a drink, sit back, and join professional Scrum trainers Sander Dorr, Jim Sammons, and their guests in an all-new episode.
Hey everyone, if you've ever wanted to join Sander and I in person and maybe even record a podcast episode of your own or just sit in a panel and talk to some guests, this is your chance. We're both going to be in Helsinki, Finland at the end of March on March 27th and 28th at the Scan Agile Conference. The venue looks amazing. There's plenty of awesome speakers, sites, food, and other activities to experience while you're in town. What I'm excited about the most, besides the conference, of course, is learning some of these great Finnish phrases. Like apparently in Finland, they don't say that they're in a great hurry. They say they're going to run using their head as a third leg. Now, we all know that Sander can be a bit crazy at times, but a Finn would question if he has all of the moomins in his valley. I have no idea what that means, but I'm going to say that no, he doesn't have all of his movements. So come on, join us. It's going to be great. All the info is at scan-agile.org.
Welcome back, everyone. Still have the luxury of having my co-writer / annex evil twin, Ryan Brook, with me and Jim on the other side of the water. Welcome back, gentlemen.
It's good to be back from about,
about
an hour ago?
Roughly. How do you feel it went?
I think it went really well. It's always a pleasure talking to Jim, and you were a nice addition.
I'm just here to be the eye candy.
This is a podcast audio only, this one, right?
Yeah, that's why I look good.
Yeah, like they say, you got a face for radio.
Right. Yeah, I tell everybody I have a face for standard definition. No one wants me in 4K.
I would say so. You could show up definitely on as 4K.
That's his daily rate, right?
4K, I like it.
There is, I hope the audio or the echo is going to be out, that we can filter that out in the post-production. But let's continue with this anyway.
It's pretty good here. So
sweet. No, let's hope it stays that way. I'm really curious, guys, what has been the highlight of your 2024 year in an Agile context? And I specifically add this one because usually when I ask the questions in my trainings, when I do the introduction parts, and then there's I put a question on the wall, like, do you have any burning questions that you would like to have answered? Usually I get questions like, who's going to win the World Cup? Who's going to win the US elections? And blah, blah, blah. So hence why I add specifically in an Agile context.
Ooh, that's a good question. I something I'm pretty happy about, which actually is like Caesar and Nero watching the world burn, but I'm kind of happy that people have realized that not all Scrum Masters are equal, and that there are you taking a photo of me?
Yes.
That was an awful angle. I like the fact that there are different levels of Scrum Master. I think we can all agree that there has been an over-certification of lots of different things. Scrum is of one of those things within the Agile domain. But I think because we tend to go with this whole flat hierarchy, a Scrum Master is a Scrum Master is a Scrum Master, whether you've been doing it in an organizational context for 10 years or whether you've just got your PSM, you got your first junior role. But I don't think previously businesses had realized that there was a difference, right? I could buy someone in who's super expensive, or I could buy someone cheap, but they're both a Scrum Master. There's going to be no difference, right? Wrong. And I think that hopefully in the last 12 months, or something I've realized anyway, particularly working in government sectors, they've realized that there is a difference. The annoying part is that I think they've realized that they value money more than experience, and therefore usually go towards the cheaper end.
Yeah, that's the same question or the same statement as a car is a car. Well, that's not true. Like a Lada is not anything close to a Ferrari.
True, but sometimes you want different things, right? And different outcomes.
100%.
Usually the people hiring, though, are the ones that perhaps aren't as close to the outcomes they really want. They're just looking at the bottom line.
Fair enough.
But no, staying in the positive, I think the success here is that organizations have wisened up to the fact that agility has a value. Whether they want to choose to invest in it, well, that's a different question for 2025. But I think we all know the way it's going.
What about you, Jim?
Yeah, I was thinking, I think the biggest benefit or the most positive thing in 2024 for me is a double-edged sword. It's that I now have multiple people working for me, which I absolutely love, because to build what I want my business to be, I have to scale, right? I can't just clone myself. And I say double-edged because now I have people that rely on me, and that creates stress and weight. But I like it. It's not a overwhelming weight. It's a good weight. But I think 2024 was the year that my business finally transitioned from just me being, whatever level of quality I am in my office to a actual team.
What's your goal with Wise Breeze?
My goal is to help more of the people that I care about see that we spend 8 to 10 hours a day working, and we might as well enjoy it, and to build a scalable business so that shared success is a reality, right? So that that's the quick answer. There's a much, much longer answer that I don't think anybody wants, but I think someone asked me if I wanted to be like a large staffing firm in the future. I do not. I don't ever want to have 500 people that work for me. I would rather have 50 and know every single one of them, and sit around a big long table at a holiday party with 40 of them, and know their spouses and their kids and their goals and all that. So that would be far much more rewarding for me.
It's funny that you used the word number 50, actually, because I had the same conversation about 2 months ago with someone, and I gave exactly the same number. I said I actually wanted 50,000 passive revenue. That's what I wanted for me and my family. I could live on that. And about 50 people seems a good number. But the challenge back to that was, yeah, but that's because you don't yet have 50 people. If you've got 50 people, are you then going to want more? Are you then going to want more? And then 500 people, and your perspective and your scope is going to change. And I thought that's a really interesting question, because if I have 50 people and someone comes along and says, hey, there's $1 million in revenue ready for you, do I say no to that? Well, actually, that's something that I don't know as a business owner. Right now, I want something small because that's the stage I'm at. But do you think we're ever going to get scope creep, Jim, where we realize we want more?
I think it's very possible, maybe even likely. One of the things that I'm not smart enough to understand why successful businesses with good cultures at 50 people feel the need to continue to buy, merge, acquire, and grow instead of creating multiple smaller connected organizations that can thrive. Like, so maybe you do get $1 million, but maybe the cost to either your outcome or those 50 people that got you there is not even worth it. Maybe the better thing for you to do with OptiLearn is to create another organization with a different name that is ran day to day by someone else. So I don't know. I think it is an interesting thing, because I'm constantly shocked, Ryan, when I see somebody who has probably already made enough money for 10 lifetimes and their children and grandchildren's lifetime, still out there investing, taking risks, building things. Like, I don't know. I've never been that person, so I can't understand the struggle, I guess.
I guess all of us on this podcast, I identify as a product guy, right? A product guy rather than a business guy. And I guess running the business is kind of a means to an end. But I think all of us, if money was taken out of the equation, if it didn't exist, I still think we'd be here trying to build products because that's what we love to do. What do you guys think?
One question that obviously now is a great segue to our next book, The Anatomy of a Product, working title.
Are we releasing that?
I don't know. We'll see.
we committed to the title. Well,
he's already emailed me a draft. What are you talking about?
That's why I say the working title. We'll see if it's actually going to be the end state. What do you consider, both of you, what do you consider is your product?
At a business level or at a personal level?
Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Joe Rogan. My product.
Most likely closer towards the microphone.
I'm going to say I don't know. I know from a business perspective. I don't know at a personal level. Maybe Jim, you can fill an answer and I'll have time to think of one.
I think my product for the world is connection and inspiration. I'm a consultant, right? And I think the smartest people throughout history have always had people around them helping them achieve things and challenging them. And I'm a big fan of Winston Churchill. And I mean, he's one of the people I look to for this. Now, I don't know if that's a product. I think, you two have spent the last 2 years thinking about product from every possible angle. So maybe you can tell me, but the value I bring to an organization is that it's consulting, which is made up of training, facilitation, connections, etc.
Is your product for both of you the service that you provide to the organization? Because again, if we're going to look from a very meta perspective, a product can be something physical, something of a service, something more abstract. Like you provide a service to organizations for them to ultimately better their ways of delivering value.
I think the reason I'm struggling to answer the question is because I'm still pivoted between this personal and the business. From a business perspective, our service is an agile consultancy service that includes training, recruiting, and consulting. For all three of them, buy in a package. We help you backfill. We help you train those people so that we can leave at a certain point and everything's good. However, from a personal perspective, I don't think I do have a product. In fact, if I do, I'm not thinking about it. I'm just thinking about the day-to-day. How can I make me and my family happier? And I feel like that's a good way for me to live. If I try and make everything about product and about work, there would be no lines between anything. And it's just not a way for me to behave.
I sum up Wiser Bees just the way you summed up your three kind of things that you do. And I've helped clients see how each one of those things begets the next one. Like if I help you do work, you're going to need help. So let me help you hire people, backfill people, bring people to you, etc. And then any engagement I've ever done has had some amount of training and education. It could be on the job stuff. We could learn by doing together, or maybe it's in a classroom, or maybe it's a mixture, whatever. But almost all three of those things lead to the others. And I, like Ryan said, I would struggle to define what my personal product is. I would say that I don't think, and I would love to be wrong, I would love to be so radically successful that I can't stop. But I think if I had an accountant that I trusted come to me and say, Jim, dude, you've got enough. Like your 401k, your investments, whatever, like you can build the business if you want and grow it, but you can also go sit by the pool. You can go hike the Appalachian Trail. You can go backpack across Scotland. I'd be like, oh my God, thank you. Like,
enough is one of those subjective words again as well, right? Define enough for what? To do basic stuff? Like you can just sit at home and do jack shit until you retire or until you die. Do you want to have enough that you can do like an additional holiday every year? Do you want to have enough to buy 3 Ferraris so you can have like one for each different week and then keep going? What does enough mean to you?
I think we have to check our privilege a little bit having this conversation, in that we are able to have this conversation do you know what? The world is our oyster for a lot of us. We can choose what route we want. Enough for me is that I just feel satisfied in the moment. And I think enough is going to change over time and, different times in my life. Right now, I want enough so that my family and my kids have no concerns over anything. They've got a roof above their heads. They eat well, they eat healthy, they can go on school trips. That's enough for me, right? I am not, hey, would it be nice to go to Mauritius 5-star? Yes, but spending 50,000 on a holiday is not me, right? I am quite happy being content. And that contentedness has no price. It has no words. I will just know it in the moment.
But then you get into more muddy waters, right? Because now we've had a discussion, a very brief one, and it's going to be my homework for you guys for over the holidays to figure out, define what your product is.
We just said that over the holidays we like to detach. There is no homework for Jim or I.
Yeah.
I'll lift it over the holidays. Fine.
Okay.
For early
I
next
just have
year.
one question. I have one question for you. How dare you give us homework over the
Without
holidays?
any hesitation. With nothing. No shame, no hesitation, no nothing. Anyway.
Yeah.
Coming back to my train of thoughts, this is what you were just saying about the 5-star hotel. That's a difference between, again, price and value, right? Price is what you pay, value is what you get. I don't think we would be the right audience for 5-star hotels anyway, because the amount of value that we would derive for the price that we would invest is just, it doesn't balance out.
I'm a massive user of Reddit. I don't know if you guys are, but I love Reddit, and there's a few threads that I'm part of, and one of them was, now you're doing okay for money. What are the things you would never compromise on? It's quite a lot of well-off people in it, and I love the responses. Things like 4-ply toilet paper because my backside is worth it, right? Doing drop and go at the airport, right? Because I can just drop my car and I'm good to go.
This is such a good segue from the toilet paper to drop and go.
There's a pizza sauce called Mutti Italian pizza sauce, right? And I just gone through and I've put some of these things on my purchases, and I went, yes, that is it. It's about quality and value of life. To be able to say, do you know what? I am worth it. That's what enough is for me.
Yeah. And I think we've had this conversation a little bit more often in this podcast, but also you and me. I think in the position that we are in the part of the world that we live, we have very little to truly complain about, right? And I think that's something that few organizations truly take into account, and people, and especially that's why I like having this little conversation just prior to the end of the year, right? Because it's so easy to forget the amount of success that we've had, but also the fact that we don't really have to worry about, if we're going to go out of a job, that there's not going to be any other job for us to pick up, right? It's fairly easy to find something else and to not necessarily have to go through all these struggles. And I think that's a very privileged position.
I agree, but Jim, you interrupted first, so you go.
Well, this year has been humbling for a lot of reasons, right? There are a number of more people than ever before in my professional life that I consider friends, high quality people that are doing good work and that I think are not posers, that are talking to bankruptcy lawyers right now. So I'm humbled by the fact that no matter how comfortable we feel in the moment and how privileged we are compared to the masses, it can change in a dime. Like, I know people who a year ago probably would never have worried about paying their mortgage or putting food in the refrigerator, and now they are. And these are people with families and things. So, I don't know what enough is. But I know for me, it's not a $50,000 vacation because, or a Ferrari. I watched a little TikTok of somebody yesterday talking about how they were $200,000 upside down in their Ferrari SF90. And they weren't on the phone trying to solve that problem. They were on the phone trying to downgrade into a Corvette because they still had an image to maintain. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know what I want to be. I don't know what my product is, but I know what it's not. And it's not deriving personal satisfaction from the logo on my car or how many stars my hotel has or how many white glove people bring me things. I've never flown private. Like, I want to. If anyone out there wants to send me a ticket, I would love to fly private. I've been able to go to the Four Seasons and stay there without having to pay the bill. But if I have to pay the bill, it's much more likely I'm going to get 3 of my mates together and we're going to go to an Airbnb that'll be, 80 pounds a night per person, right? That's just how I am. I'm not saying it makes me better or worse. I don't know where I'm going with any of that, except to come back to, I don't know what I am or want to be. I just know what I don't want to be.
It's a good place as any to start though, Jim.
Yeah.
Mastering agility only works with organizations aligned with our values, and that's exactly why we are excited to work with our sponsor. Scrum Match is the free platform for professionals run by professionals. On Scrum Match, true Scrum Masters get hired by companies serious about the popular framework. The awesome people behind this platform have decades of experience, among them a professional Scrum trainer for Scrum.org. They have interviewed, trained, and coached hundreds of like-minded people, and they use this exact experience to make you stand out from the crowd and help you get in touch with companies looking for true Scrum Masters. So go to scrummatch.com and sprint to your dream job.
Now you were the second one to interrupt. So what were you going to say?
You pretty much said the same thing. I think you don't have to look very hard to find a lot of good people out of work. I think the industry right now is struggling to determine the difference between good and less good in our community, and therefore hiring is sadly often coming down to salary. I also think there are a lot of people who base their salary and their expectations and their lifestyle scope creep based on 5 years ago when the consultant market was booming. It's like, well, hey, I was on 100,000 before. How dare you offer me 80? With respect, the market's moved on, right? A number is a number. So I think it's very easy for us to say it's easy to find a job until we're out of a job.
But you have the skills and the opportunity in these parts of the world to find something else. And maybe if it's not going to be in consultancy, you can do something else with the skills and the open mindset and the growth mindset that you have. I don't think you would have to be afraid that you're going to be out of a job for a year.
During COVID, I got a stop notice from my consultancy. Within a week, I was working in Domino's.
But you have something.
But I have something. Hey, my wife loved it when I came home with fresh hot garlic bread. But my opinion has always been, and this is not to denigrate people who sit around for a year looking for the perfect job, but I firmly believe in grafting. You go out, you graft, you do something for your family, you work. And that's something that I've always had built into me it's something I talk about a lot, actually, the difference between sort of typically male and female kind of characters in the home. Rightly or wrongly, I think as men, we have and it's not about feminism or masculinity or chauvinism. We build into ourselves this need to provide for our families. And it's not to say that because we're high earner or our partners are high earners. But I personally see this need and I do not agree with it whatsoever. But I have that. So I want to go out and work to prove that I'm not being lazy.
Speaking of not being lazy, let's let Marge in. Dun, dun, dun. It's such a good opportunity for Marge to join in.
Well, while we welcome Marge, before I forget, I want to officially invite Ryan and your spouse or anyone else to come to hang out with me, and maybe we can get more people here as well. I love receiving guests, and I would love to hang out by the fire. And something you said,
play with guns in an ATV.
That's you, buddy. Like at the same time, like we had to stop him from being on an ATV shooting a gun at the same time. And as much as I would love the video footage and picture, it probably wasn't smart. But anyway,
I rudely got stopped.
One quick reflection before we hear from Marge. Last night I was driving through traffic, fighting the stores in the rain, feeling a little stressed, spending a lot of money. And I realized my dad, if you were to make a holiday movie about my father, it would be waiting all holiday season until Christmas Eve or December 23rd and having him like buy everyone's gifts. Like it's just known. Like it is known. If this was a Game of Thrones, it is known. And I used to think growing up, like, why would he do that to himself? Even as recently as a few years ago, I'd be like, why do you do that to yourself? But now I get it. It's because he had that innate need to provide. It's not toxic masculinity. It's, my dad was always the breadwinner of the family. And as a business owner now, I realize I wasn't stupid enough to think Christmas wasn't going to come. But I procrastinated because there was always more important things I felt I should be doing than going to the stores or logging in. And remember, most of my growing up was before my dad could log into a website and buy Christmas. It was you had to actually go stand in lines and fight people for parking spots and stuff. So,
and that's where one of those skills with riding an ATV and shooting guns at the same time would have come in so handy.
Well, yeah, I mean, go look at some of the big toy releases in the US and you'll see fist fights and violence break out. But it's just humbling to understand how our perspective changes as time goes on. And whatever Ryan and I's perspective on what our product is now is, I can guarantee it'll be different in 5 years.
For sure.
Marge, what has been your Agile 2024 highlight? And I don't mean the conference, but just looking back in the year in the context of Agile, that could be with Wiser Bees or something else. What has been your highlight?
Working with her heroes.
Absolutely, yes. I can only say, I mean, given that Jim is in this conversation as well, I can only say it has been becoming a wiser bee, part of the hive.
So is it safe to assume that you didn't have your end of year review yet that you say these specific words?
Exactly, yes, not yet. We're doing a group review on Wednesday.
We are. We're having a Wiser holiday party tomorrow. Just a quick or a short impromptu chat.
What's the story behind the name Wiser Bees, by the way?
So I've always liked owls. About 10 years ago, I went to the state fair here, the Ohio State Fair, and I just happened upon the natural resources area. And I love golden retrievers and retriever dogs. And I was going to watch a display of agility dogs, right? But there was also a birds of prey thing. And there was these beautiful young women holding falcons and owls and all this. And I just walked up because of the beautiful women. And I'm like, oh my God, I really love these birds.
Which ones?
Yeah, the owls and the falcons. So fast forward, I went to Costa Rica a few years ago and learned a lot about their ecosystem and bees, birds, bats, and butterflies, the 4 Bs of the world. And like, if you're not aware, those 4 things are extremely important building blocks to Mother Earth, right? So that's kind of where this idea of wisdom from owls, because what I like about owls, and I started designing a tattoo, is if you think about it, if you look into owls and their symbology and Native Americans and all this stuff, there's a lot of interesting things there, but also wisdom is kind of this confluence of knowledge and time. Like, you can't become wise overnight. You can't graduate an Ivy League school and call yourself wise. Wisdom comes only with time and experience. And it's all of those things, this kind of hive mentality, this building block, this pollinator idea of bees with this. We're smart people that have seen some shit, man. Like, we've seen some stuff. Marge has experience. I've got experiences. We're not bringing in, cheap, low quality people who are just going to check all the boxes for you for a very, very low hourly rate. We bring wisdom instead of just
I like that.
Smarts.
Sweet. What about OptiLearn in that sense?
ChatGPT, my man. No, there's more to it than that. Basically, I wanted the word learn to be in it, just brand recognition, basically optimizing learning. That's why.
Sweet.
OptiLearn. Yeah.
I like that. That's easy.
Also,
how do you define optimize? I'm curious if you get that question.
What, as in terms of optimized learning?
Sure.
Personalized to the person receiving the learning. So I was a teacher. I was a head of chemistry in a secondary school, for those of you who don't know. And the ability to differentiate learning based on the person in front of you was a key skill that you teach people when they're learning how to teach. There's a difference for me massively between a teacher and a trainer. So optimized learning is, hey, well, how can I assess how Jim, Marge, and Sander learn? And how can I customize my material to make sure it works well for them? Just the same we do for consultancy, but learning.
Both Jim and I are experienced consultants and trainers. Therefore, we know how important it is for organizations to have the fundamentals in place before delivering high-value products. And this starts with understanding the theory behind whatever framework, method, or process organizations apply. And this is where Zebia comes in. Zebia is a pioneering software engineering and IT consultancy company, transforming and executing at the intersection of domain and technology to create digital leaders for our people, clients, partners, and communities. As a gift for our Mastering Agility audience, they provided us with a discount code MA10 when signing up for their open enrollment classes to get 10% off. Go to zebia.com/academy to find the entire curriculum of courses. That is Zebia, XEBIA.com/academy to find all their courses.
How do the three of you feel about applying that mentality, which I really like, to leadership? Because one of the things I've been telling leaders this year is it's a sad realization that most leaders go through, that to do what one person needs to be supported could be very different than what another person is. And, so many people want to just they want to know the best practice. They want to know what's the process to do this. And I find myself in the business of telling people, if you have 10 people that report to you, you might have to have 10 different skill sets to help each of those people achieve more. So does that personalized nature of learning apply to leadership?
I think so, but I also think it's slightly flipped. So if I'm teaching you something, conscious using the active word teach, that usually means that I am in a position of knowledge and you are less so. Whereas from a leadership perspective, I once got taught by my first ever career manager, a guy called John Gill. He probably doesn't even remember me, but I remember him. And he said, the only career manager you will ever need, Ryan, is you. You come to me, tell me what you need. And yeah, hey, I might help you sand off the edges. But if you need something, is that a name check for you, to sand off the edges? If you, and if you need help, that's fine. That's what I'm here for. But take your own accountability. So in terms of leadership, I think you just need to acknowledge that you are trying to create an environment, a place for those discussions to happen, for them to realize what they need. So I think it's a similar style, because in leadership, you're not necessarily trying to teach something.
I like the answer. And with that, I'm going to segue to Marge, because now Jim is Marge's leader in some sort of weird ass way. And I'm curious how you apply that to Jim in this context.
How I apply that to Jim in this context? Oh, Jesus Christ. That's such a complicated question.
Yeah.
I was not prepared for that.
Those are the best answers.
Yeah. Well, so the people I would say that you, Jim, are referring to, I would say a lot of them aren't necessarily what we would actually consider leaders, but more like managers. So I feel like your role would be not necessarily to lead those people, but like make them or support them in becoming actual leaders, not just managers of, air quotes here, resources. So I feel like that's like the big difference. Are you talking to management or are you talking to leaders? Because leaders need a completely different skill set than managers would. And then it depends on what kind of people you're working with. So if you have 10 people reporting to you and you're a leader, you're going to do things completely differently than a manager of 10 people.
Yes. And when Ryan was talking, I was thinking that person felt almost more like a coach as you described them, right? And sure, all these ideas, coaching, training, leading, managing, they're all related, but I think they're very different. And you're right, Marge, I am talking about managers, but also leaders. And many people don't know what the four of us know, and that manager and leader are not synonymous.
Which is odd. But I think that's where the personalized approach of learning does come in. Because if you can style, I think there's no universal way of teaching management or leadership into doing their jobs, because it requires a very personal approach. I think there's going to be like a universal manager that does exactly the same thing in the same way, because then people are not going to follow. And that's the relationship that you want to create, right? The people follow initially for the sake of wanting to follow, not because they're being told to follow. And in Solving for Value, you eloquently put that, Ryan, as the leader relationship versus leader follower. And I think that's what many people should aspire. But that's really hard to get into that realm, to first go from a leader-slave relationship almost. Like, I tell you, do whatever the fuck I tell you, don't even question me, to a leader-follower, and then from leader.
Mm-hmm. Well, earlier this year, I was coaching a client who was really struggling, and they still are struggling this week, but I think they're on the other side of the chasm of what do they want to be when they grow up? And they were kind of struggling between being a technical expert, being a manager, and being a leader. And they were looking to me to say, which one should I be? And I'm like, they're all fine. And I asked them something. I said, do you care more about what your teams produce? Do you care more about how they produce it? Or do you care more about how happy and successful they are in their long-term career? And I said, and then I let him talk for a while. And I said, well, your answer tells me you want to be a leader. But if you had said, I care about how they do what they're doing more, and I want to be able to roll up my sleeves and help them, you might want to be an engineering manager. You might want to remain an engineering manager. If you care about how they are as humans in their career arc and all that, maybe you're a manager. Maybe you're a people manager.
Interesting. I had a conversation yesterday with Marge about this to a certain degree, but we were talking about how many people are being forced to stay in that realm of doing whatever they need to do and not necessarily think about growth or the result and how you get there. People are being rewarded by this is the result that you have achieved, and not like this is the point that you were at the beginning of the year. This is how you've grown, but this is also like the meta effect of what you have achieved. Like, did you help other people grow? Did you bring in any other business, for instance? These kind of things are never taken into the equation when we're having these kind of conversations.
Yeah, well, it's usually not part of your end of the year goals, right? So the end of the year, you have your conversation with some HR person, and then you just check off boxes. Did you do this? Did you do that? Well, like you said yesterday, like you don't get a thumbs up for questioning things. Like you get the thumbs up and the check mark on your bonus if you did as you were told most of the times, if you weren't really uncomfortable, which I feel some people should be uncomfortable every once in a while, or at least question things, not just do as they're told.
I think you should be uncomfortable. I think you should regularly be uncomfortable, because as a business owner, it's super stressful for me. And Ryan, I'm curious what you think when I am in uncharted territories, or when I'm asked to do something I've never done. Like the first time I was asked to sign a 60-page MSA with some very scary language in it, or the first time I had to sit down with a C-level executive, or the first time I had to do whatever. I couldn't deal with that every day, but that's called growth. Like, uncomfortableness is kind of like muscle soreness after you go to the gym. Like, that's how you know you did something. So, like, what do you think, Ryan? Am I off base of that? And what's your tolerance for that discomfort if you thought about it as like 100%, like what percentage of that are you okay being uncomfortable, and which amount do you need to feel comfortable?
I can't answer that question because, well, I guess I can, but it's different depending on the environment and also how I'm feeling at the time of year. If I'm, so for example, yesterday, I started a new contract. I'm a product owner. And for those first sort of 4 or 5 hours, you want to make a great impact, and you are on, right? You are firing off every question. You are giving them those perspectives to make them go, I've been here for 5 years and I'd never thought that. And then you get home at 5:30 and you just collapse because there's nothing left in your tank. So can I deal with a level of discomfort? Sure. But I can't give you an answer as to how much, because it's so dependent on how I'm feeling.
It depends. Your favorite answer.
Sunder, Marge? I knew you were going to say that. That's why I barely even looked at you when I asked that question, because I knew it depends. What's it depend on, though, for Christ's sakes?
Jesus, we could just, use this particular recording. It depends. What does it depend on? Yes. And then we can just play that over and over in every single episode.
Yes, and
yeah,
it would change over time as well. It's almost like the paradox of your estimations. Like the estimations that you're going to make now are completely different than the ones that you're going to make in half a year's time. If you've done it a couple of times, those circumstances change, so your answer and your input is going to change as well. So it always depends on the time of year, unless you would redo it in the exact same circumstances, the exact same position, the exact same environment.
True.
Yeah. Well, and this whole idea of personalized stuff and all that, just to come back to that, because when we were just talking, Ryan, you said authentic quite a bit. And Marge, one thing I don't know if you would agree, and please disagree if you don't, is it's on my What is Wiser Bees slide is I want you to be your authentic true self with one caveat, which is you being your true self does not put the team or the company in jeopardy. But think about why that is. I think it's why, because people are drawn to genuine people, right? With all their faults, because we're all human. And because I don't want Marge or Martin or me or anybody else that I'm working with have to spend any unnecessary amount of their cognitive load on acting. Because like Ryan was talking about earlier, it is exhausting to be on or to be acting or to be putting on a persona or being something less than genuine. And we all have to do that, right? Like I can't be my true self in public or all day, every day. But the amount, if you think about that spectrum again, the amount of myself that I can be myself means I have more brain power to do the work that I want to be doing and that my clients hire me to do.
Do you feel that the client should be paying you more for your brain capacity that's being put to use and the actual results that you achieve?
No.
Because that's an interesting one as well. Like, what's the potential there? If we're going to focus on very short-term goals, then you only can leverage that, which is like off the cuff, right? But if you see the amount of growth that you have realized over time and how you've not necessarily converged towards the organization, but you become more of a blend because then you learn and you ramp up the whole reasoning behind the things that you do. It's going to be a blend of things, right?
I want to charge my clients less. I know that's a terrible business strategy. I want to charge my clients less and give them more. But when I scale, I'm able to do that, right? Like, anyway, like that's probably not a good answer.
Any honest answer is an honest.
But it's a genuine answer.
Exactly. That's the only good answer. The same as the question, like, what's a good philosophy? Well, a transparent one. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what to make of it, but I don't know if you all know the actor Jim Carrey, right?
Of course.
He retired a number of years ago, and he was lauded in the industry as, look, he's got enough money. He's doing what he wants to do. He's an artist. He's, doing all this. Well, the headlines, if you believe them, and I'm not saying I do, he went back to work, came out of retirement because he needed money.
Yeah, he said he spent too much, but he had about 300 million fortune. Then the question is, how much did he actually spend? How much? Then you come back to the beginning of this question: what does that mean to have enough? Spend everything of those 300 million, or spend such an unreasonable chunk that he wants to get back on par? I don't know.
It depends.
Exactly. Summary of the story. You should be a consultant.
I should be, right? Yeah. That'd be great. I can say it in different tones of voice as well.
Just try.
No, I can't do this right now because then, it could be recorded and then people could use it and they wouldn't need to hire me anymore for it.
Oh, right. Yeah, there goes your hour rate. Your justification of consultancy. Being able to say it depends.
Exactly.
And then with arguments.
Oh, I hate the answer. Absolutely hate the phrase, it depends. I think it's one of the things that has undermined a lot of our industry. Because when we say it depends, what that means is I am right now not going to give you an answer. And go on, Marge.
Yeah, but I think if you say, it depends itself is not necessarily bad. If you say, well, it depends, period.
Yes.
And you stop there, that's an asshole move. If you say, well, it depends on what you would like to achieve. Are you looking for this or for that? Or what's the reason? Why are you asking this particular question? Whatever. Like if you continue.
Yes, if you demonstrate.
Then it's fair to say because it does depend. Like 95% of the time it does depend because we're working with, like you said, individuals. We're working with human beings. You don't have twins. So this worked 5 years ago at that company. It's not, well, okay, you two are sort of twins, but that's.
Evil twins.
Evil twins from a different mom.
I think as Jim said earlier when we were talking about cards and games and things like that was off mic actually. But as consultants, we know that there are probably 2 or 3 outcomes from this situation. So it depends. But in my experience, I've seen one of 3 things happen. Which of these 3 things? Right. Okay. Then I can give you some more information. But it depends. People forget that Scrum Masters should be judged on their delivery as well. So I think that's why a lot of kind of Scrum Mastery is becoming more delivery manager-esque. And I don't necessarily think, even though I know that's just sometimes a title change, that the focus on delivery, I think, has been forgotten by some of those people who don't really understand what agility is. If I'm sat there going, I just did a wonderful retrospective, yay! And everyone's like, cool, I just did Friends or The Simpsons or whatever. And I think that's great, but gamification is just overdone. And I think sometimes it's like, did you produce an increment? Well, get back and let's figure out why you didn't produce an increment. And let's talk about how we give some value, because a retro is not going to do anything.
Yeah. What's the value in it?
Yeah. I was having a conversation with a Scrum Master the other day. The topic of fun retros came up, right? And I'm like, what's the opposite of a fun retro? And I said, is it a boring retro? Is that what the person on the team who doesn't like doing fun retros or themed retros is saying? They want to do a boring retro. And like, well, no, I think they want to have an effective one. I'm like, okay, good, better. Are our retros effective or are your retros effective? Well, yeah, and we do this, this, and this, and nobody questions the effectiveness. I'm like, okay, so now the question becomes, I can go sit and talk to my team for 90 minutes and be bored with no theme and no icebreaker and leave with an effective retro, or I can go have a fun theme that some people really enjoy, other people don't seem to give a shit about, and I can leave at 90 minutes with an effective outcome. I don't know about you, but it seems to me like the effectiveness, if it's in place for both, why don't we please some people and not worry about creating a boring effective retro?
Can they be both? Can they be fun and useful and effective?
Yes.
Yes.
No, that's what I'm saying is, yeah, they were fun and effective. They were...
Yeah, I think fun, if you have fun in the retro and you still have an actionable outcome of it and you stick to it, and like if the outcome of the retro is there, I don't care if you did that in a 90-minute session being bored or if you played Monopoly. As long as the outcome is right and it works for that particular team, I think it doesn't matter if you just go on your board or you just put a sticky note on your head or you play a Tinder retro for 90 minutes. Like whatever does the trick, we want the outcome, and the way to get there. I think that's for the teams and the Scrum Master then to figure out what works for them and just try things out. If an icebreaker works, amazing, but maybe they don't even need that. Or if themed retros work, or if you do a retro around a particular topic like psychological safety, that might be worth the effort to just do this particular topic in one retro and not a very general thing, because that might be something you observed as a Scrum Master the team struggles with, or someone brought it up to you, or the team approaches you like, hey, could we do something around this? And then you do something themed, very specific.
So at that point, I would also say, what would you suggest? Do you want to run this retrospective for once yourself instead of always looking at me as a Scrum Master? Also, 90 minutes in a Tinder retrospectives, I'd be done after 2.
Well, yeah. Timing aside, in my best example in my career of Scrum excellence, Ryan, my title was delivery manager, and you and I would not see many of the fundamentals of Scrum in what we did, but we absolutely did it, and it was the best. And the title didn't get in the way. I think delivery lead, delivery manager, whatever, they can just be words. They can be very helpful because far too many Scrum Masters are selfish Scrum Masters that do things for themselves instead of to achieve an outcome. But I also see the risk in, no matter what you call that person, making them accountable for things that they shouldn't be accountable for, because that leads to behaviors that you may not want.
I love the title value coach. That's something I've seen more frequently. Yeah.
But then you have to define value.
Exactly.
No, I don't think you do, because I think part of the issue there is that they don't know what value is. So actually going in as a value-centered coach to say, right, actually help them to find the value, because they don't know. So walking into an organization saying, right, what do people use this product for? What can they do here that they can't do elsewhere? What are your metrics that support your continued investment here? asking those tough questions, I think, is a very valued skill. And it's not something that just anyone can do. I have found that when I was a Scrum Master at 25, 26, I wasn't taken seriously. I'd lost my hair at that point, but that didn't help. I was a young guy. Why would we believe you who've been doing this at 20 for years? Why would we believe you? Now I'm 10 years older, nearly 35. I feel like I'm respected more because it's like, this guy's been here. He's worked in multiple organizations. Wisdom was a word Jim used when he was talking about wiser bees. I think some of it is age. It's not all to do with age, because you can have 10 years of crap experience or 1 year of good. But I think age really helps in this sector. You need that gravitas behind you. So I've found I've actually been listened to more as I've got older.
Fair enough. I think that, sorry, the term value coach does make me think of like the job titles that make me itch, like customer success manager or product success. Fuck that.
I should say one of the clients I'm working with right now has customer success managers. We'll have that conversation in January.
But it's such a bullshit name, because it assumes that there's going to be success. What if you drive the organization to the ground? Have you achieved success?
But if your title is customer success manager, it's a clear focus that you are there to support the customer in achieving goals, that the customer should succeed.
Yeah, but the title asserts that success will be achieved like an absolute. And that's bullshit.
My issue with the title is it's too narrow. I don't think success only comes from customers. I think then, do we have a metrics success manager? Do we have a I don't know,
value success coach?
Well, whatever words you're going to call it, you either go for generalists or specialists. And I quite like the idea of, I think something that frustrates me is when you get called a product owner and it's like, so you use Scrum, do you? No, not really. We use Kanban, a bit of waterfall. Right. Well, then it's not a product owner, is it? No, it definitely is a product owner. No, it's not. Let's talk the same language. And there are so many lies and frustrations that organizations tell them. I think what we all need to do as consultants is go in there and just be honest with them. Whether they want to hear it is a completely different question. So what we then need to do is help them to hear it. And that is something that takes a vast amount of expertise.
People always take that so personally. Like if you're going to say your product, it does not really look. Are you saying I do my job really bad? Yeah, maybe. If that's like the conclusion you draw from these two words I just said, sure. Probably you're doing a sucky job. Yeah. And maybe it's time that you erase it.
I don't think Scrum owns the word product or owner or even product owner, but
there you have the definition. In Scrum, you have the 3 accountabilities, and they are actually fairly defined. So it's clear what you have to do and what not, what's your expertise or should be your expertise, what's your accountability, what are your responsibilities. So everything is fairly clear, right? So you don't get into the way of each other. As a product owner, you let the devs do what devs do and so on. And then if we start using those job titles for even other jobs, roles, whatever, it gets even more confusing.
For sure. Question for you, Ryan. I've asked the other two this before, but if you were a product owner for anything, and what would your reaction be if you saw your product changing and weren't aware of how or why?
Saw my product changing. Can you give me an example of what you mean?
Well, let's say I call you the product owner of itdepends.com.
Okay.
And everyone knows that you are the product owner for itdepends.com. That's on your business card. It's in your signature, and you have a backlog and you have a development team. And you wake up tomorrow, log into itdepends.com, and you're like, what is that header? Where did this come from? Wait, now we have a chatbot? When did we integrate AI? If things like that were happening, what would that say about you, the product, the team, etc.?
Tell me that I'm not present enough. Equally, it would probably tell me that I have either a very self-managing team or a very arrogant team, one of the two, and I guess I don't know based on the situation. it would tell me that I was going to say that my metrics are off, but maybe. Based on that question, there could be a number of things that I'd be thinking, but primarily it would be that I'm not being present enough.
Now, let's say that in this scenario, you're not yourself. You are a part of a big Fortune 100 company.
Yeah.
And all the trappings that come along with that. Do all your answers still start with I?
Well, I guess my question then goes back to, are we talking about a Scrum accountability or not? If I'm saying I'm a product owner as per the Scrum guide, then yeah, it is me. But the question I always like to ask my consultancies when they say product owner is, okay, so I have the final say, do I? If anything's going wrong, I have the final say. Well, not really then, Ryan. Well, I'm not a product owner then. And that's okay, but tell me what I am. And I think unless they can answer that question, well, you're going nowhere. Because I have one of my clients, I'm purposely being vague now, I've got about 4, where there are 6 managers and 4 devs. That is a clusterfuck.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know who to go to which. I'm the PO of the team. And it's like, when I have a problem, who am I going to? I should point out, I don't have a Scrum Master. And it's just crazy.
So you're not doing Scrum?
So we're not doing Scrum.
Nice.
Scrum bud.
If you need one, give me a call. Marge and I can help you find one.
It's very kind of you both.
Maybe related to the sponsor of this podcast. It's called Zebia. We have a lot of great agile coaches and Scrum Masters.
It's very kind offer from all of you. Thank you very much.
Wait until you see the hour rate.
And the only reason I asked, I mean, you probably can guess why I'm asking, right? Is many product owners don't feel in control of their own product. Changes are being made, decisions are being made that they're not even aware of. Work is being done they're not even aware of. And sometimes they voiced an opinion, they've made a decision, and it's not respected. And I think that's the struggle, right? So Marge has heard me rant before that I've actually told people in the last few months, don't call me the product owner of that because I'm not the owner. What do you mean? Of course you are. No, you don't respect my decisions. Work's being done that I'm not even privy to. People, so like I value that title and what comes along with it, the good and the bad, so much that I will run from it at times.
Yeah, give me the job, the accountability, or don't. I'm okay with either of those two, but let's not play this kind of half in, half out, because that doesn't help anybody.
At what point would you leave? Would you jump ship from such a role?
It's because
that's not accountability anymore, right?
No, I think that's a different question for Ryan, the business owner, versus Ryan as a consultant or as an employee. If I was an employee, I wouldn't be able to run from it as easy. But equally, as a consultant, I walk in because I think we have to stop being glib at a certain point and say it's not as fast as I'm just going to leave one day and get a job. There's a 3 to 6 month lead time. But for me as a consultant, if people say, well, you're not going to do that, I say, that's great. I've got other revenue streams. I'm comfortable. The service you've brought me into is to do this. And if you don't want that service, that's okay. But I have other people that do want it. So what do I do in that situation? Then I leave. Because you have to want a consultant. Let's be honest, they're paying us more than their permanent staff. Usually, 3 to 5 times per daily rate. If you don't want what I'm offering, it is disrespectful of me to continue taking your money.
Exactly. But also the other way around, if it doesn't fit you anymore, then why are you staying there? If you're going to be super frustrated with basically the job that you're supposed to do is being taken away from you.
Yeah.
What is keeping you there?
As a permanent employee, because I'm probably bought into the mission and what this organization is trying to achieve. As a consultant, I actually, and I don't know if Jim, if you feel the same as a business owner, my job is to care about your mission and your outcomes, but the buying into that, you're actually buying into my service that I'm delivering for you. I'm not necessarily, I don't have to agree with everything you're trying to achieve. I'm there to try and help execute and generate an outcome. So if you don't want what I can offer, then I'm free to say, well, let's part as friends. But when you do want these services, this is what I offer. I think businesses that try and say, we'll do anything for you, are not actually offering any form of service. That is a bum on a seat. We call it people smuggling in the UK, which is probably not the right term for it.
Trafficking.
Yeah, trafficking. You know what? If you just want a bum on a seat, I've got someone for you. $1,000 a day. Thank you.
Sweet. I mean, it's good money.
Well, and that's where this idea of just tell me what to do comes in, right? Like people pay twice per hour than they pay me from large consultancies, and then they have to tell them what to do all day. They're putting a bum in a seat, as you say, to do that, but they're expecting or assuming they're going to get leadership and accountability and an empowerment and initiative and all these other things. So I think what you're saying is it's all about setting the right expectations and having boundaries. And our buddy and colleague Simon Reindl is quick to say sometimes that sometimes you got to fire your customers. And I think that's where an hour ago when we were talking about the industry at large, that I find it interesting is there are so many people right now that have told me, hold on to anything you've got, because the things are not in a state where you should fire anybody, any of your turn away any money. And I just think that is true, maybe, but it leads to some very predictable things, right? Like when people hold on to something, even if they know it's not the best thing to do for either party, it leads to some very predictable outcomes.
And in many cases, they will be able to backfill you cheaper. But equally, there is that, hopefully you have that kind of self-validation in yourself, your consultancy, your personal skill set that says, okay, I might not be the person for you now. If you want to go and find somewhere else, that's fine. And if you're successful, I wish you all the best. But in my experience, I think these are the problems you're going to struggle with. So even though it's something that I don't necessarily like doing, whenever I start a consultancy, I write a report, a 2-pager. That week or two of just observing at the start, I'll write a 2-pager. This is an outline of the team. These are the risks that I've identified, and these are who I believe are accountable for helping me to fix them. If we all agree to what I've written, cool, let's go on. If not, then let's say I can just leave.
Right. Well, and one thing that I've realized is I used to think that the dream statement of work was super vague, no deliverables, no specifics and all that. And I have had a harsh realization that is not good. It's tough to pivot. It's tough to change that. Sometimes you get one chance a year. Sometimes you don't even get that. But I do think it all comes back to, does everybody understand what each person brings to the table and what we're being held accountable to, what our expectations are, and are we doing what we want to do? Because some of us have the privilege to say, I could do that. You're willing to pay me to do that, but I don't want to do that. And which leads me to a question that I've asked Marge and Sunder, and I'm curious, Ryan, as the audience gets to know you, one question I love to ask our guests is, let me pose this scenario that you have to keep working, but you no longer have to generate a single dollar to know that you, your family, your kids, everybody is taken care of. What would you do with the rest of your adult working time if you had to work but didn't have to worry about the money?
Either I would work in marine kind of restoration, so cleaning up the oceans, or homelessness charities. Those are my 2 causes. Believe very strongly in education, but I'm so far out of it that I don't believe I should almost be involved in it anymore. I believe you should leave those things to the experts. But where I can offer just, I was going to say bulk strength. You can see these guns, Sander. They're not exactly huge.
Sure.
But where I can just offer empathy and time, those are the 2 things that I care about.
If you're going to put homeless people back into a job, would you call the company bum in a seat?
Sander.
Optibum.
Sorry, are we rebranding my company now?
Just providing some ideas.
I would never presume to do that.
No, but no, that is what I would do with my time, Jim. I would absolutely love to do that. But equally, if I had to work, I don't know. I almost don't like the question that had to work. But I know what you're doing. I know the scenario.
So maybe let's start wrapping up this conversation slightly. Continue the couple of questions more, Jim, because I like where we were going, just making sure that we stay mindful of the time.
Yeah, sure. And the reason I love this question, Ryan, and you're right that maybe I need to find a way to phrase it. That's not you have to work. It's you get to work, or you get to do work that matters. So I would suspect that working for one of like 4oceans.com or one of these type of companies doing what you do today would be maybe a bridge. Like, yeah, you still have to work now, but if you could work with an ocean cleanup society right now, that would be good, right? And that is what I always find interesting, because you never know. Someone could be listening right now that could be the head of some large organization or a plastics manufacturer or a marine thing that says, we're doing agility. Let's bring these two things together, right? Like, to me, that's the dream scenario. The dream scenario is doing what we're good at for profit and enjoying it.
So if anybody is listening, so we do pro bono offerings. If you have something that aligns, so that tag you can have on LinkedIn, contact me for, I've got pro bono on. No one ever uses it. But if someone ever said, hey, look, I have this, I could use some skill set. Do you align? Would you be willing to support us? Hell yeah. Why not? We donate 1% of our profits per year to charity. We try and be, that whole kind of, what's it called? Your corporate sustainable responsibility. I believe that we all have one of those to give back in some way. We do ours right now, and it sounds an awful, very transactional way. Offsetting all of our carbon footprint, donating to 1% for the planet, and just doing some targeted support for UK military. That's kind of what we do at the moment, but we could always do more. So yeah, everyone wants to make a difference. Like Mr. Beast, right? A wonderful YouTuber. He says he gets more from giving money away than receiving it. And that's how I genuinely feel. There was a guy who came up to me just outside the office the other day in the UK. He was crying. I'm going to say a homeless guy. I don't know. He said he'd been living in a park for 17 days. He needed £30 to get home to his family for Christmas. Would I give it him? And I genuinely had exactly £30 cash in my pocket, and I gave it all to him. He was crying. He was hugging. He was shaking my hand. And I tell you what, I felt the best I'd felt in weeks by being. I could be a cynic and assume that he's going to go and spend that on booze and drugs and cigarettes or whatever, or I can see the best in people. And I'm a glass half full kind of guy. So that's where I'm at.
I like that. Well done.
Love it.
Thank you.
That's a great way to end on this episode, I think, because we should all endeavor to be more like Ryan's story.
Maybe in that story, but less wider life. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
As always, can't wait to see you over here in the US. Come our way sometime.
Well, guys, have a wonderful end of 2024, a restful 2025. Look after yourselves, treat yourselves well, and enjoy the Christmas period.
All right. Thank you very much, interim podcast host.
You too.
No worries.
All right. Have a good one, everyone.
Right. Later. See ya.
That is all for today. Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, let us know by hitting that like button. Share it with friends and colleagues, sharing a message on LinkedIn, joining our warm and welcoming Discord community, or attend recordings as a virtual audience. You can find all the relevant links in the show notes. We hope you'll tune back in for the next episode of the Mastering Agility podcast.